Coordinator for the UK government. Thanks for joining us, Charlotte. So, if you label Hamas terrorists, that will be making a moral judgment. Well, do you know what? People who rape babies, murder pregnant women, murder innocent citizens, 1,400 of them in the most obscene way, I kind of, call me controversial, but I reserve the right to make a moral judgment about that. Is that OK?
Look, I mean, this is absolutely foundational. Hamas is a proscribed terror organisation under UK law. It is an illegal act under the tact offence to show support for Hamas. What's really concerning here is in a training session for what I assume would have been prevent practitioners, CT practitioners within the civil service, that those are being taught something that actually should be flagged up to prevent in the first place. So are we saying that those that are a concern of prevent, that are discussing terrorist organizations in this way, are those that are teaching it? Unfortunately, I'm not surprised. We found time again that there is a culture of timidity and ignorance when it comes to Islamist extremism within the civil service. But I am surprised at this coming from King's, actually. I did have trust in King's. I know a lot of prevent practitioners have masters from King's in terrorism studies. And this has come as a shock to me and a real worry when I thought this was something we could rely on.
It's alarming, learning some of the details of what this... it's not just a Mickey Mouse training session, it's frankly outright dangerous as far as I can tell, because one minute they seem to be going up against official government policy, asking in one of the training sessions whether they should consider Israel as an example of a state committing terrorism. And then someone else saying that someone on the course said that Prevent is an inherently racist organisation because it focuses on Islamist extremism. I mean, this is just absolutely bonkers.
Well, we know that Prevent actually has been found to overemphasise the far right and not tackle Islamist extremism adequately. So, I mean, that's just factually incorrect. But you're right to say this is dangerous. We know that the approach towards counterterrorism is one that's been labelled and marked as timid and marred by ignorance, as per William Shawcross's Prevent review. We've also heard from Sarah Khan, the former Counter-Extremism Commission, to say that there's large gaps in counterterrorism legislation, and MI5 has said that we need to be concerned and on the lookout for lone wolf attacks inspired by Hamas. Everyone is concerned. FBI has said red flashing lights everywhere for potential terror attacks. This is not the time at all. I mean, this is a very, very worrying time for CT. But B, this is antithetical to everything recent reports and investigations have called for: better trained, more confident practitioners who understand Islamism and are confident enough to tackle it.
I mean, this is, let's put this into context. This has been revealed by a former civil servant who's turned whistleblower called Anna Stanley. And she disclosed that staff, and these are very important ministries, obviously, the Foreign Office, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Defence and the Home Office, were asked to consider whether Israel is an example of a state committing terrorism. Well, I don't think they are an example. I would suggest that maybe Hamas are an example. They're not a state, but they're the ones who committed terrorism. Israel is just defending itself. Can you just bear with us for a second, Charlotte? Yeah. Stay where you are, because in this report, in this brainwashing exercise of the civil servant blob, our friend and colleague, who often broadcasts on TalkTV, excellent writer, novelist, author, Douglas Murray, a man of some standing, is accused of being a sort of far right-wing nutcase, as is Joe Rogan from America. And this morning, Douglas spoke to our colleague Julia Hartley-Brewer to defend himself, quite rightly. Let's have a listen to Douglas.
It seems that this same man, Peter Newman, was asked, what can we do to counter these terrifying views that Joe Rogan and Douglas Murray espouse? Because, of course, Joe Rogan and I are such incredibly fringe figures, as you know, Julia. I mean, it's far, far to the fringes of any reasonable politics. And this man, Peter Newman, very sinisterly said, we will have to find other ways to suppress them. Now, given that he had already been asked, how do we suppress them on social media when they have such big platforms, Joe Rogan and Douglas Murray, he then says, society will have to find other ways to suppress them. I would like King's College London to carry out an urgent review, and I would like them to suspend Peter Newman, the man in question, until we find out exactly why he was doing this, what he meant by it. It's deeply sinister. I've got my lawyers looking into this already.
Charlotte, well, there you are. I mean, in the end, it sounds to me, among the many other sins of this report, it's an attack on freedom of speech, isn't it?
Look, Douglas Murray holds some right-wing positions that I myself may not agree with, but that is not the focus of Prevent. Prevent is to focus on terrorism and the terrorist threat. Therefore, the focus on, I mean, I wouldn't consider him far right and a risk to society at all. I consider him to hold some right-wing opinions that could be debated. This is not what we should be focusing on. This is exactly what William Shawcross identified, this politicization of counter-terrorism in a bid for votes, and also to do with a culture of timidity and a worry of being branded Islamophobic, has led to a point where a counter-terrorism training session is spent focusing on right-wing spokespeople. It's absolutely ludicrous and quite frankly, as you've already said, dangerous. I don't even want to be smiling about this because we are under threat from Islamist extremism. It will be a bigger risk moving forwards after October the 7th. And we have to do something as a country to tackle it. And this is the opposite of what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, is it not the case that so many things happening in society today are not being properly tackled because people are worried about causing offence, whether it be child grooming gangs, whether it be some of the nature of the rhetoric we're hearing on those pro-Palestine marches, whether it be people trying to get into our country illegally, some of them essentially sponsored by hostile states. And if we cannot have conversations about things for fear of being regarded as far-right or racist or anti-Islamist, then we are putting the country's national security in peril.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the Ariana Grande Manchester Arena bombing, we know that the security guard at the time did not call in the threat because he was concerned about being seen Islamophobic when he saw the gentleman with the backpack in the foyer for the concert looking suspicious, and he did not call that in. 23 lives lost because he was afraid of being branded Islamophobic. So yes, this is a direct threat. This cowardice, this ignorance has to be addressed immediately. And we were assured by the Conservative government that it would be, after the Shawcross report, that these recommendations would be implemented, that the training would improve. Where is this improved training?
I'll tell you what, it's great to talk to you, Charlotte, and I want to stress you are not a political or social commentator. You're an expert in terrorism, and we thank you for your wise words and your company. Thank you so much. Rebecca Ryan, political campaigns consultant, is still with us. I mean, this is why the civil service are called the blob. I'll tell you what I'd like to give civil servants a course on, you know, a report on, is like train timetables, bus routes, so they could remember how to get to the office, because they never ever turn up for work anymore. I mean, what is happening to the civil service? It is becoming the enemy of the people, it seems to me.
It has, and it has been for some time, hasn't it? And that's why the Conservative Party were given an 80-seat majority, is because they came in promising to sort out the blob, didn't they? We thought, oh, Dominic Cummings was going to come in and sort out, you know, and deal with this once and for all. And it's only got worse, hasn't it? And what we've seen from this awful story here is that there's a complete ideological capture of the civil service, and they can't see the wood from the trees. They're just pushing their own agenda. They've got this kind of, you know, always wanting to be pushing this liberalism forward. We see it in other areas as well on the whole gender debate. You know, these agendas are being pushed, and that's not what the civil service should be doing. They should be completely neutral.
You know about this, Alex. You know, Peter Newman, the author of this report, you know, if you happen to, you know, heinously have the temerity to have views that are maybe slightly right of centre, just like Douglas Murray and Joe Rogan, they dismiss you as far right.
Oh, yeah,
You're
no,
an extremist.
It always is. Yeah. But where does this come from? How on earth has this been allowed to take root in our society when actually these people who are supposed to be some of the most intelligent people, some of the most educated, frankly, are making willfully ignorant and myopic decisions and judgments when most ordinary people out there can see with their eyes what is going on in this country. I don't get it. I don't get where it's come from. And without being able to understand that, it's very difficult to know how we turn it around.
I would say that these people who author these kind of reports, I don't know anything about Peter Newman, but they're either incredibly stupid or they're just polemicists.
Exactly. I think that's what it comes down to, isn't it? And I think it's the London bubble. And the sooner they disperse the civil service and sort of spread it out across the country and get people actually just doing the work that they're supposed to be doing without pushing these sort of middle-class dinner party debates in their day-to-day work. I mean, that's what they're doing, aren't they? They're pushing through these fashionable debates when they should just be working with complete neutrality. So, yeah, let's spread them out across the country. You won't get these sort of trendy wannabes wanting to work in the civil service in that way. You'll just get people who want to do the graft.
You'd imagine, Alex, right now in the Ministry of Defence, where Grant Shapps' Ministry of Defence, where he is now talking tough, quite rightly in my view, about the Houthi rebels, the possibility of bombing the Yemen. In the Ministry of Defence, the brainwashed staff will be saying, you can't call them rebels, you can't call them terrorists. That's what they'll be focusing on, the niceties of language and terms when we've potentially got World War III in the way. This is absolutely destructive of a nation functioning properly. And as you say, Alex, how did this happen under the Tories? They've dropped so many balls.
The thing that is most alarming to me in all of this is the fact that governments come and go, prime ministers come and go, don't we know it? But the thing that is the continuum underneath it all, the thing that is the continuum underneath it all is the civil service, right? They are the ones who are in position for a very long tenure, despite who's in administration. And it's these people who seem to be coming up with their own woke agenda, who seem to be overriding and overruling the government. They're the unelected, faceless, you know, swamp of wokery that is really blighting this country.
Yeah, but we see what happens when you do get people like Priti Patel or Suella Braverman who come in,
bullying.
Exactly. They all kick up a fuss. The BBC and the left-wing media all jump to, you know, the defence of the civil service, and it's all sort of a concerted effort to get rid of these sort of extreme right-wing people.